it's hard for me in some way. I feel like I've chosen kind of the worst career for myself because I'm a in real life I'm very conflict adverse and a real conflict avoider, and you can't do that as a writer. And it's all about conflict, right? And yeah, I just want Ben Packer to be happy, and I don't like. It's kind of hard for me to torture him in some of these ways, and pushing him out of his comfort zone sometimes feels like pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And so um it is something that I have to kind of it's work for me, yeah, to it, but it's I mean there's no book without conflict, right? And so every time I sit down to write these books, there's kind of what is the what's the main crime that he's trying to solve? What is that conflict? And then I'm also asking myself, what's going on in Ben Packard's life in this book, and what's the conflict that he's facing in it internally or in his personal life? How is he going to change in this book? And those are hopefully they're the two stories are kind of intertwined, and they feed off of each other, and that's what I try to do in each book. The nice thing about writing a series is you get to come back to these characters, and even the small ones, yeah, get a chance to shine in future books or continue to grow as much as Packard does. I really like Thielen, the other deputy that Packard partners with in these books. Um, a lot's going on with her by the third book. Um, I really like the character Kelly, who is the admin in the sheriff's department. Uh, she's a she was kind of inspired by a coworker of mine at my day job, and I told her I said I created this character, and she's kind of inspired by you, and actually named her Kelly, and my coworker's name was Kelly. And then in the second book, we find out that Kelly is a huge Barry Manilow fan in the books in Where the Dead Sleep. And my friend Kelly is also a huge Barry Manilow fan. So I told her, I was like, I'm putting Kelly in this book, and she's a huge Barry Manilow fan. You got to let me know if you're not okay with that. And she's like, no, I love it. So my friend Kelly has seen Barry Manilow over 200 times in concert. And she's like the biggest fan of Low you can be. And so, yeah, I wrote that into the book for the character. And we both got a huge kick out of it. So the third book in the series is called A Long Time Gone. And in this book, Ben Packard finally finds out what happened to his brother 30 years ago. Um, when I wrote In There He Kept Her, like I mentioned, this personal connection that he had to this small town was one of the last things I added to that book. And I had no idea what happened to the brother at that point. I was like, that's a problem we'll solve tomorrow. And then I wrote the next book, Where the Dead Sleep, and I still didn't have a great idea what happened to the brother in that book, but there was too much going on in that book with the husband being killed and then Ben Packard running in the election. And I was like, we're not going to get to the brother in this book. But I ended that book on kind of a cliffhanger where he's gets some new information about his brother. Um, and there's some information about his brother that he follows up on in the third book. So by the time I finished writing Where the Dead Sleep, I had an idea of where I wanted to go with the brother. I didn't fully know everything. I just I think this is what happened to him. And there are a couple little clues at the end of Where the Dead Sleep that needed to be in place for him to follow up in the third book. So, um, yeah, if I had to go back and undo that, I would have been in trouble. So, because it was in print in the second book. So yeah, in A Long Time Gone now, uh, it opens with he's involved in an officer involved shooting when somebody brings a gun to the courthouse, and he has to kill this person basically to stop them from shooting anybody else. And he's on administrative leave while they investigate his actions at the courthouse, and he's got some time on his hands to start looking into what happened to his brother. But going into the book, I knew that it felt to me like the brother story wasn't big enough to carry the whole entire novel itself. And so as he starts looking into what happened to his brother, he goes back to his grandparents' house where his brother disappeared from, and finds out that the woman who owned the house currently died recently by falling down the stairs. And everybody thinks it's an accident. There was not really much of an investigation into it. He wasn't aware of it because he was busy with other things. But now that he's in his grandparents' house and he knows this house, and there's just something that doesn't fit for him about what happened to this woman. And so he starts asking questions about what happened to her. And then that becomes the central kind of investigation in this book. But it, having the house at the center of it, it kind of helps keep both of those stories intertwined, because that's where his brother disappeared from 30 years ago. It's kind of he's got a lot of memories of this house, spending time there, of, he was the last person to see his brother the night he disappeared. So, yeah, both of those stories kind of are intertwined through the book. And by the end, he finds out exactly what happened to his brother all those years ago.